This Sunday.
The Friends are coming! The Friends are coming!
Sons of Liberty, history's new scripted drama.
Hand over the tray to Samuel Adams and John Hancock.
The untold story of a group of rebels.
These are our streets!
Who brought an empire to its knees.
These people are asking for a war. We're going to give them one.
Let's show them what we're made of. Fire!
A 3-night special event, Sons of Liberty. Premieres Sunday at 9, 8 Central on History.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd podcast.
You know, it just cracks me up. The old magic trick. You ever go to see a magician? I used to live in Vegas, so I've always been sort of fascinated with magicians. Magicians are different now. They hold their breath underwater, and they embed themselves in ice for 48 days, you know, like David Blaine. You know, they do some crazy stuff. Back when I went to magicians as a kid, it was like, hey, look at my right hand over here. In my left hand's a quarter. Now you see it, now you don't, and you're an idiot. Yeah, I mean, so it's a different thing. But all magicians do the same thing. Look over there, and I'll do stuff over here with the hand you're not looking at. This morning, look over there at that pass interference call. That's the game. Yeah, it's not that Tony Romo was great down the stretch. It's not that the Cowboys were more aggressive. It's not that the Cowboys had better adjustments in the second half. It's not that the Lions head coaching staff froze like a deer in headlights. No, let's look over here at the pass interference that wasn't called, and there was a flag, and they picked up the flag. Look over there. That's the game. Really, 67 plays. Detroit controlled 66. And that over in the right hand's the game? So you didn't have a single play. After that play, it was 4th and 1. At Dallas's 46. You think Belichick would have punted? You had the ball 4th and 1. Pettigrew, Calvin Johnson, Reggie Bush, Matt Stafford, some of the best players in the game, right? 4th and 1. You don't have a play in your playbook that can get a yard. You led the game 2017, 8.5 left. You didn't have the guts to go for it? You don't deserve to win the playoff game. You can look over there at the right hand and look at the pass interference, non-pass interference. You can blame that. 46-yard line at Dallas. 1 yard. You lead. You get that yard, pick up 2 more first downs, win the football game. I mean, you get some momentum going. Incredible. After the first quarter, 14-0 lead, Detroit didn't do anything. 130 total yards in the second half. You want to blame the refs? How about Detroit, your 3 turnovers, your 8 penalties, you lack guts, and you were 4 for 11 on 3rd down. 67 plays. Over here, it's that one. It's scripted. It's conspiracy. Punting? What? Dallas won the coaching adjustments. Dallas converted several huge 3rd downs. Dallas converted a huge 4th down. Dallas had guts late in the game. Detroit lacked anything resembling that. That's the game. Now, I will give Detroit credit. I'll play a couple bites here. I'll give Detroit credit. Jim Caldwell, the coach, and Ndamukong Suh. After the game, they showed class.
I'm not going to sit up here and act like that was the call that made a difference in the game. We still had our chances.
And Ndamukong Suh.
You can't let just one play define the game. I think you would be doing discredit to the whole game.
So I'll give Detroit class. Give them credit. That's the what you say after the game. You can blame it all you want. But, you know, fans, historically, one of the things that I've always found funny doing this for 25 years is that fans are fans. They spend thousands of dollars to go to the game. They wear pajamas to bed, Ohio State Buckeye sweater to the game. And they're always yelling that the refs are biased. Because you have a little self-awareness. You're biased. I mean, you know, you can call it pass interference. Pettigrew, by the way, pushed off twice to the linebacker. You can call it whatever you want to call. But look in the mirror. 4th and 1 at their 46. In fact, you even took a penalty to get a better spot for your punt. You had the game. You didn't do anything. You didn't make any adjustments. You froze in the headlights. You didn't have any guts. Perception's an incredible thing, right? Like sometimes you just can't overcome perception. No matter how good of a guy you are, how good of a person, if something bad happens early in life, people just judge you. Here's a great example of perception. Jack Del Rio was in Jacksonville for 9 years. Heading into his last year, he had a winning record. He had 3 winning seasons. He was 8-8 twice. He won a playoff game. He was above 500 going into his last year with average to below average quarterbacks in the NFL. Since he's left, they're 11-42. He leaves, they go right into the toilet. Jack Del Rio, why is he not interviewing for every job? Why? Because he wore a leather jacket on the sidelines, and outside of Fonzie and maybe Neo from Matrix, nobody's ever elevated their look wearing a leather jacket publicly. Fonzie's the only no doubt about it. Fonzie before leather jacket, meh. Happy Days, Fonzie leather jacket, he's the man. I still contend that leather jacket did Jack Del Rio no favors. Jack Del Rio was above 500 going into his last year, winning seasons 3, 8-8 2, won a playoff game, leaves to go into the toilet. He can't get an interview. It's incredible. Perception. Similarly, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's amazing. Does anybody get that in his last 5 playoff games, he's got 13 touchdowns and no picks, and nobody likes Flacco? He's 10-4 in the playoffs, better than anybody in the league. 2 wins in 3 attempts at Foxborough. I think he's great. The 2 guys in this league I love are Joe Flacco and Russell Wilson, and nobody wants to give him credit. If you look, since the 2010 season, Flacco's one of 14 quarterbacks with multiple playoff appearances in the past 5 years. He's got 20 TDs and 2 picks. He's 8-3. Nobody outside of Aaron Rodgers is even close. And he's better than Aaron Rodgers. But he's a bum. I mean, it's amazing. If you look at the numbers with the perception is he's kind of a rockhead. He's the only quarterback to start and win a playoff game in each of his first 5 years. He's got more road playoff wins by a quarterback than anybody in the league, 7. He's the first quarterback to have a passer rating over 100 in all 4 games of a single postseason. He's the fastest quarterback to record 5 touchdowns in a game, 16 minutes. He's got all sorts of NFL records. But he's considered kind of a clunker back there. Well, he's not that smart. Here's all I know. All he does is win. Something happened early in the league. He started talking. He went around to ESPN. Maybe he wasn't that articulate. I don't know. But what is it with Joe Flacco? In fact, this morning I'm talking to Stanzik. And Stanzik is a classic, you don't like Flacco. You're not into Flacco at all.
It's a little strong, but yeah.
You had him ranked what this morning?
11th.
11th. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Today, all in on every quarterback in the league. I would take Andrew Luck before him, Aaron Rodgers before him, and for 2 years, Tom Brady before him.
You take Romo, too, don't lie.
And I would take Tony Romo before him.
You wouldn't take Eli?
Have you watched Eli the last 4 years?
I'm going to use your own argument against you. You always say that Andrew Luck is so great because they ask him to do so much. I would argue the Giants ask Eli to do more than the Ravens ask Joe Flacco.
Yeah, and Andrew Luck gets into the playoffs every year.
Yeah, and Eli has 2 Super Bowl rings and a better playoff record than Joe Flacco, and you're citing all Flacco's numbers since 2010.
Flacco's
You're just not counting Eli's numbers.
Flacco's better than Eli Manning today.
That's where we disagree.
Oh, I think he's Drew Brees today, Peyton Manning today.
You take Joe Flacco over Drew Brees.
Absolutely. Today,
10 weeks ago, you said he's a top 4 quarterback in the league, and now Flacco's all of a sudden in the top 4 because he's winning and Drew Brees isn't.
Drew Brees and Peyton Manning physically are not the same guy today as a year ago. They're not. They're not. Flacco, but the perception is Jack Del Rio wore a leather jacket. He's just over his head. He's a coordinator. That's the perception. Jacksonville can't get a first down since he left, and Flacco, because he was kind of clunky in front of a mic first 2 years, a clunkhead, do you realize he is the best quarterback on the road in the league and maybe in the history of the league?
Russell Wilson or Joe Flacco, who do you take?
Flacco by an inch. Well, actually by 5, because he's 6'5", and one's 5'11 and a half. That's why I like Flacco. He's a bigger, stronger guy, but I love both of them. It's incredible, though. Perception's amazing.
Technology gone bad. Gone bad. This is the Thundering Herd podcast.
Yeah, I mean, football really is a game of momentum, and Detroit just gave the momentum all back to Dallas in that football game, and everybody wants to call let's just say that pass interference call wasn't made. Whether it was or not, we can argue. Pettigrew pushed off twice, you can make the argument, and for the record, I had Detroit in the points. And I didn't predict Dallas was going to be any good this year. So I've never been some big Cowboy honk. I thought they would be awful this year, and I thought Detroit was the bet. But when you have a chance in a football game, we all know what football is all about. It's about momentum. I mean, Oregon and Florida State, when Oregon in the second half of that game ripped the ball out of the running back for Florida State in their opening drive, you could feel the momentum change. Ohio State, Alabama. Bama was about ready to blow Ohio State's doors off, and Ohio State comes up with a trick play that's covered but works, changes the whole atmosphere of the stadium. Football, because of its violence, a big hit, a big sack, a big pick can change everything. It can change everything, your physical confidence, your emotional stability. Detroit had Dallas. Even after that play, let's say it was just a no call. Let's just say it was a no call, and you're like, oh, okay, it's 4th and 1. Go for it and seize momentum. And Detroit punted. In fact, they took a penalty so their punter would have more space. That's on you. You had 3 picks, 8 turnovers. You were lousy on 3rd down, and you allowed the Cowboys to convert a huge 4th down. By the way, Jason Garrett talked about that, going forward on 4th down when they found Jason Witten.
One of the things that you can do there is punt and then try to get a stop and then try to get the ball back, or you can say, let's go get this thing done right now. And what kept going through my mind was, if you get a chance to go play at the Masters, you don't lay up. You go after it a little bit. And, again, a lot of confidence in the guys to execute it. I thought it was fitting that it went to Witten, the most reliable football player I've ever been around. He comes up in that big moment.
Yep, you don't lay it up. I thought Detroit did. So we're just going to pay attention to that pass interference call. And I didn't think it was that obvious of a pass interference. I thought Pettigrew pushed off twice. You can see him. He pushes off again, call it if you want, but it's the going to pick the flag up that bothers people. It's clunky, it doesn't look right, and then the conspiracy avalanche, the ball goes downhill, and you can just forget talking common sense with anybody. Now the league is fixing games. Like the league wanted the Seattle Seahawks geographically isolated to win the Super Bowl and humiliate Peyton Manning in last year's Super Bowl. I thought Dallas was the better team in the second half. Ohio State was the better team in the second half. Oregon was the better team in the second half. First halves don't decide football games. Second halves decide big football games. You start looking, Michigan State was the better team in the second half against Baylor. Carolina was absolutely the better team in the second half against Arizona. Baltimore was the better team in the second half against Pittsburgh. Indy was the better team in the second half against Cincinnati. At halftime, that game, how many drops could the Colts have? So down the stretch, Dallas converted more, was more aggressive, went forward on 4th, converted the 4th, had fewer penalties. Fans, you got 67 plays. You can blame a single play anytime you want. But when you have 3 turnovers, you're not going to get a lot of embrace from me. You threw a couple of picks, you had a fumble. That's on you. Mike, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Hi, Colin. I agree with you many, many times. I love your show and everything, but I think you've totally missed the whole boat here. I think that there was numerous calls along with that call that you're talking about, the interference call. There's no way they should have picked up the flag. But secondly, Des Bryant, to be on the field, that is a flag 99.9% of the time. So I don't agree with what you're saying that, just eliminate that call and go from there. You can't do that. And on the ensuing drive...
But what about your 8 penalties and punting it on 4th and 1?
Yes, I'm with you there. But what I'm saying is, on the ensuing drive, I think the referees in the 4th quarter, the last 9 minutes of that game, took that game over. That's terrible to say that, and I agree with you most of the time.
You're saying basically one play changed the game, and to that I would say, no, Detroit allowed the one play to change the game. Detroit allowed that. If your daughter or son does something on vacation, you can allow it to spoil the vacation, or you can change momentum. It's bad parenting if you don't. Detroit allowed that play to change the game. Belichick doesn't. Oregon made mistakes. They didn't allow those mistakes. Ohio State was not perfect in that football game. You can allow the officials to change a game. The great coaches and the great teams do not allow that to happen. So life's not about action, it's about reaction. How do you react to crisis? I say this. I'm going to make dumb comments. I'm going to make mistakes on the air. I'm going to have horrible segments. I'm going to whiff on guests. I'm on the air 28 columns a day. I'm on the air by myself. I'm going to have horrible moments. It's what I do with those in the next segment to make you forget about it. That's on me. Because we're all in life going to make big blunders. We're all going to make mistakes. How do you react? Detroit reacted by getting scared and punting. Detroit looked in the mirror and didn't like what they saw from themselves. 1 yard is all you needed, and you didn't have the guts to go for it. Well, guess what? Dallas did on the ensuing drive. That's on you, Detroit. That's not on the refs, because refs are going to make mistakes. Name a single game you watched in the last week, college or pro, where there wasn't a horrible call. In every one of them. There wasn't a single game where you didn't go, boy, that was a head-scratcher. There were still 8.5 minutes left in the game. You led. You led the game. You had the lead. You had the ball. You were in Dallas territory. The game was yours. It wasn't like you trailed. It was 4th down and you didn't get another chance. It was 3rd down. All right, your ball, 4th one. Get a yard. Seal this baby. I mean, you want to blame the refs. It was 3rd down. It always reminds me of the Sacramento-Los Angeles Lakers. Remember that Western Conference was at finals? It was Game 6 in Sacramento, and people said, oh, the refs, they were terrible. Yeah, it would have helped in Game 7 if Sacramento, you could have hit a single 3. In Game 7, Sacramento allowed that poor officiating to win the series. In Game 7, Sacramento was terrible. You just can't allow that. I never forget one of the smartest things I ever heard. Years and years and years ago, it must have been, I don't even remember, it was 10 years ago. Oregon had Joey Harrington at quarterback, and they had a really, really good football team, and they'd won several narrow games, and they lost to Stanford. And, you know, at the time in college football, back then, it was like one loss ruins everything. And Mike Bellotti came in after the game, and it was one of the smartest things I ever heard a coach say. He goes, well, we're not going to let Stanford beat us twice. And they came back, and they never lost a game the rest of the season, and they ended up beating like Colorado in the Fiesta, whatever, finished number 2 in the nation. But I never forget that. I think about that often. I tell my kids, don't let that bad moment beat you twice. Don't let a lousy day. It's just, you know, Jerry Sandusky's an evil human being. He's not going to control my life. What he did is awful. Get into therapy. Don't let that schmuck control you the rest of your life. Detroit, it was 3rd down. And you didn't have the guts to go for it.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
John Skipper is ESPN's president and has a very, very busy schedule. But when we reached out to him as a show, if he could come on for just 5 minutes and talk about Stuart Scott, who passed away this weekend, John Skipper immediately said, absolutely, when do you want me on? And I think it shows just the importance and the value that Stuart Scott brought to this company. He passed away this weekend way too soon at 49 years old. And John Skipper joining us in the Herd on ESPN Radio. Of all the things that Stu brought professionally, John, to ESPN, what do you think his greatest influence was?
Well, I think that there was an audience, and it's an African-American audience, with a certain sensibility that from the moment Stuart went on the air, they went, we're in the conversation. We've got a guy now who's on ESPN, who talks like us and has some of the same cultural experiences and has the same feel and passion for sports, and it kind of changed everything. It was a seminal moment for ESPN when there was a different kind of inclusion.
You know, Stuart, we both knew him behind the scenes. In fact, I knew him behind the scenes because our schedules were different, and I would see him with his daughter at soccer games with my daughter and in chorus. You knew him personally as well. And what do you recall? What stands out personally with Stuart?
Well, what stands out was what a good guy he was. It's a cliche, and people say, nobody has a bad word to say about so-and-so. And for the most part, as you know, Colin, it's not true. You can almost always find a bad word. But Stuart, you didn't hear a bad word. He was a lovely guy. He always had a smile on his face. He was always happy to see you. He engaged. When you saw Stuart in the hall, he stopped and he talked to you. You didn't hear very seldom did Stuart say, sorry, I don't have time. I got to keep moving. He just was a genuinely good guy. So clearly his spirit's going to be missed around the place.
We have known for 7 years he's battling cancer. Toward the end, I was told by a friend that, he never sought pity. He didn't want people to see him in a less healthy state. Were you able to talk to him near the end?
Not near the very end. I mean, Stuart really valued his privacy these last few weeks. The last memories for me of Stuart in person are around the ESPYs and being there, and our concern was he would not even be able to make it. He'd been in the hospital for a number of days. He had he was in the hospital for 7 days, had 4 operations in the 2 weeks before the ESPYs, and even then he refused to ever sort of hang his head, literally or figuratively. Did not want much beyond, I feel for you, I hope you're doing better. He didn't want much beyond that. And you saw the way he walked onto the stage at the ESPYs. I did see him immediately afterwards, and he had to lay down. He needed to go sit down and lay down somewhere because he was just physically drained.
John Skipper's the president of ESPN and co-chair of Disney Media Networks since 2012, the Herd on ESPN Radio. I thought it was just remarkable and in such good taste, moments of silence around the NFL, other networks noting Stuart's death. What did that say to you?
Oh, my gosh. I really was moved and really do appreciate our partners, the NFL and the NBA, both having moments of silence. I think it showed you that everybody understands that Stuart changed things. I mean, when you saw the athletes, I happened to see the Cowboys Lions moment of silence, and when you saw the athletes' faces, it was not just preemptory for them. It was a profound moment. You could see that they were thinking about Stuart, so it meant a lot. And I do think our guys yesterday, I mean, Hannah and Sage and Scott and Steve Levy, and then it was nice to see Rich Eisen and Dan Patrick had lovely things to say about Stuart, and they were clearly from the heart, and they were clearly helped in sort of the dealing with it and the healing process. So I thought, and all of our production staff really handled it well, and it was clear it all sort of came from the heart and was genuine and just part of a process.
And finally, John, there's the enterprise, ESPN and SportsCenter, and then there's the sportscaster that is embedded in that process. And I always thought as a broadcaster, Stuart broke through, and it's not easy to do, and sometimes it's not well received. I imagine you both came into this company in the mid-'90s. I imagine Stuart got a lot of pushback initially for his opinions and his style. Did he not?
He did. Now, I was not. He preceded me by a few years, and I missed that. But it's legendary around the shop.
Yes.
Is the sort of the furrowed brows, and Norby Williamson talked a little bit about it on the air yesterday. That should we let him say booyah? It seems quaint, doesn't it now? But I'm told it was quite serious, and that's what I meant before. It was a paradigm shift. It was when it was okay to express yourself. Now, we had other people do it, but not other people like Stuart. And all I mean by that is like him as an individual.
Yeah. His legacy to the company, I think, is going to be really profound. When I watched this stuff yesterday, and I didn't know how the company would react posthumously, and I was so proud of the company. But it's almost like with the Jimmy V and the foundation we've created, it almost feels like there should be something with Stuart. He has that impact between these walls.
Well, I think so. And, we've already had some discussions about the right kind of remembrances and memorials for Stuart. And I'm very proud that our guys made the decision to give Stuart the Arthur Ashe Award. The Jimmy V Award. I mean, Jimmy V is another one of those guys who's sort of heart and soul of the place. And to sort of link Jimmy with Stuart last summer, I thought was a wonderful event. And we'll need to figure out how we remember Stuart from now on.
John, thank you so much for your time and your thoughtfulness, and we lost an all-timer here, Stuart Scott. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Colin.
Yeah, Stuart had to endure things that other strong personalities don't have to at this company. He came in with his own lexicon and his own style, and it did not sit well with a lot of people. And when John referenced the legendary stories about Stuart, there's a very famous Stuart Scott story where after a particularly ugly email or letter, his co-anchor came over to console him and say, "You okay, bud?" And Stuart Scott said, "Oh, it gets worse. It's been worse than that." And Stuart played him several of the phone messages he kept through the years to inspire him. And they were vile and repugnant and bigoted, and Stuart dealt with that for a long time. Nobody else had to here. So this is a guy that not only dealt with an insidious disease, but he looked different, and he sounded different, and he was different, and he was unique, and he was a groundbreaker and a game changer, and those people, they face a different assault. And he never sought pity, he never talked about it, he would never bring those things up. But his early days here, as he was changing the way often young African-American males watch sports, they had one of their guys in the room. I don't know if people really outside these walls understand what he had to deal with. Outrageous stuff. And he always handled it with absolute dignity.
You're in the Herd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
It did feel like this weekend, and it has. I've told a story where about a year ago, a big executive at this company, it may have been John Skipper, said, "Just wait until this college football playoff happens." He goes, "It's going to take the sport up 30%. And I remember thinking, 30%? That's come on. Well, Bama, Ohio State, and Oregon, Florida State got 15.5. Those are gigantic numbers. Those were like Game 7 NBA Finals. And now they will be small numbers compared to Ohio State, Oregon. That'll get a gigantic plus 20 rating. So I want to see, I'm going to guess the ratings. Did college football actually beat some of the NFL playoff games, which is unthinkable 2 years ago? Unthinkable. Cards-Panthers, which was not a great one. I'm going to guess it got an 11-5, 12-5, 13-8. So somewhere in the 13s, you're telling me. What's the final at 13-2? Okay, so college football beat that. Ravens, Steelers. Steelers bring a big national audience. I would guess a 16. 17. All right, so 16.5, 17, 17-3. So Ravens, Steelers beat college football. Bengals, Colts. Now, I think Andrew Luck has huge pull. Plus, it's Sunday. So I would guess that got an 18-5. Right on the money. Nailed it. Did I really? What was the rating? An 18-5. I'm like Kreskin over here. All right, Lions, Cowboys. That is ridiculous. Seriously. Everybody in America watched. What's the highest rating possible? Can you go 400? I would guess 20. You're going to think I'm crazy here. 22? 25? Oh, my. Did I get it? 25? On the nose. Look at that. Yeah, Cowboys. Nothing against you Steeler fans, but the Cowboys are the number one team in the league. The minute they get good, if the Cowboys make the Super Bowl with New England, it may get a 60. And we have a very diverse country. There's a lot of people that don't care about sports because it's kind of a melting pot here. So, I mean, that would be unbelievable. So, the college football games, the national championship will beat every one of those games except Lions, Cowboys. That got a 25. That's a big boy rating. where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong at the top of the hour. The old beige water pistol was at it again yesterday. Yeah, red rifle, my arse. Listen, here's the thing with Andy Dalton. Every single Bengal playoff game looks the exact same. So either get rid of the coach or get rid of the quarterback. Because every Bengal playoff game looks the exact same. So you got to change something. What did Einstein say? Don't expect different results. It's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing, you want different results. The Bengals are what they are in every playoff game. They get out-coached, out-schemed, out-played, out-quarterbacked. So either get rid of the coach or get rid of the quarterback. But, it's not that it's not that Andy Dalton's bad. If Andrew Luck's an S-Class Mercedes. Andrew Luck is an S-Class Mercedes. Wi-Fi, V8 turbo engine, collision prevention, automatic braking. I mean, that's Andrew Luck. Andy Dalton's a Nissan Maxima. It's a nice car. It's got moonroof come standard. Alloy wheels. It's got a perky 3.5-liter V6. It's got heated seats. Ample trunk space. But Andrew Luck is a S-Class Mercedes. That throw he made to Moncrief, come on. Andrew Luck, outside of Vontae Davis, name a Colt not connected to Andrew Luck who teams would vie for in this league. Vontae Davis is great. He was very good in Miami. I never understood why they let him go. He was a great corner down there, and he's terrific. Actually, their corners aren't bad. I like the Colts' corners. But, spotty pass rush, no running game. Boom Herron is their go-to guy now. Drop passes. They led the NFL in drops. It's just Andrew Luck's a completely different level. So if you're gonna expect different results, then you got to move off Marvin Lewis or Andy Dalton. But I swear to you, every single Bengal playoff game looks the exact same. They sputter around in the first half. After adjustments, they do nothing in the second. In fact, I don't think Dalton's ever thrown a touchdown pass in the playoffs leading. He's a hack. Kinda, yeah. I'm not a big fan. Okay? I went over the top one day, I admit. Dalton stinks. That day I was cranky. He's a hack. Cold medicine reaction was strong. He's a hack. But, if you want something different, then move off him, okay? Because that's what he is. You look at these playoff games, Tim Hasselbeck's getting all geared up. Hey, a lot of rights, not a lot of wrongs this weekend there, Mr. Hasselbeck. 4 playoff games, divisional round playoffs. Baltimore at New England, Carolina at Seattle, Dallas at Green Bay, and Indianapolis at Denver. I got to tell you, I think Baltimore's got the best shot at an upset. Flacco on the road, won 2 or 3 in Foxborough. I think Baltimore right now, I think New England was praying Pittsburgh won.
Colin Cowherd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
I don't know how long we do. Do we do our football guest for about another 3 weeks?
You trying to get rid of me?
I was going to say, I don't know how long, how many more weeks.
Yeah, good to be aboard.
So,
for having me.
Let's start with
By
it.
the way, you're back from your second home in Florida. I come back here. You have your wallet out. You literally are like flipping through cash when I'm in the studio. Was that not true? Was that factually accurate? I'm in here and you're flipping through cash.
I buy my
Wait a
staff
second. True. Okay, flipping through cash. You just flaunt it, dude. And then the car references, S500. He's an S-Class Mercedes. Unbelievable.
I like to relate to the common man.
Do you?
In my neighborhood. Okay. So, first of all, the controversial play in the Cowboy game, my takeaway on it. It was 4th and 1 in Dallas territory. Have some guts and go for it. Your takeaway.
Biggest play of the game.
Yes.
You would agree with that? I don't know. And it's very difficult to say one play.
I thought the biggest play in the game was the 4th down to Jason Witten. That, to me, was the biggest.
But you're not really even at that point right there. You're going for it on 4th down, obviously, if you're Dallas.
If you're
the
a quarterback,
clock is a different scenario.
If you're Matt Stafford, wouldn't you have looked at Caldwell and said, we're not going
I think it's easy for us to sit here in that situation with the defense you have to punt them and pin them back. What we're all forgetting is that the punter hit one for 10 yards. The punter totally dogged them in that
so Detroit,
scenario.
Again, whiffed. They had their opportunities. They whiffed. They punt it.
Oh, right. I'm not saying, like, hey, game's over if they keep that call, if the call stands as pass interference. I'm not saying the game is over, but that's the biggest play in the game. And when the biggest play in the game is a flag that gets picked up after the announcement is made, and by the way, there's 3 fouls on that play. It's what I thought watching it. I heard Bill Polian talking about it this morning, and he's dead on the money. It's defensive holding. Kitchen's got a handful of jersey on Pettigrew. That's been the point of emphasis all year long. So it should be defensive holding. Then it's pass interference. Kitchen does not locate the ball and makes contact with the receiver who is looking back and playing the football. So it's defensive pass interference. Then Des Bryant is out on the field with no helmet on, about 7 yards out into the field of play, confronting the official about the call. You can't do that. They lost all control of the game at that point.
Okay, you're not.
Wait a second.
Pettigrew's
should
pushing
Des Bryant, right? Again, Pettigrew's hands on the face mask in the push-off all came after the defensive holding call. That should have been the call. The call, in my estimation, should have been defensive holding, okay, or illegal contact, however they wanted to term it, right there. That should have been the call. Then after all of that happens, let's say you even want to pick up the flag and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm not sure. It wasn't enough contact for it to warrant a flag in this situation. Tell me, someone please give me an explanation of how Des Bryant was not flagged.
Guys run on the field.
Wait. No, they don't.
Sure.
What do you mean guys run on the field?
Yeah, NFL guys running on the field.
Guys run on the field and confront the official?
You're not going to call a flag on that. Come on.
Why not?
Well, it's just not. You don't officiate. Why don't they call pass interference on Hail Marys to end the game? You just don't call a penalty on that in that spot.
No, you do.
Too big of a...
We had one of those happen earlier this year.
So
we had one happen earlier this year. It was offensive pass interference.
So do you think players really believe this morning the officials were in Dallas's corner?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that whatsoever. I don't think
you just thought they butchered it.
They totally screwed it up. There's no sense. It's no different to me than when you go back to the Super Bowl with the Niners and the Ravens, when the Ravens take that safety, that there was holding wasn't called on that play. Like, it's the same outcome. I'm not saying the officials are trying to hit someone.
My Kooky Maduki on email today. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they also think that Chris Christie can only cheer for the Giants, all right? That's ridiculous. We know about your audience, all right? That's been well established.
Some are high-end. Up to 22% have
That's
worked.
The amazing thing about how this whole thing works is that you are so high-end, your audience.
My audience.
27%
work at upscale malls in the food court. All right, so let's get past that.
Okay, so but not on that game, Flacco, fourth best quarterback in the AFC. You lost your marbles.
No. You don't think he's the fourth best quarterback in the AFC?
No.
Well, what is he?
Not the fourth best quarterback in the AFC.
Third?
No, not better than that. Name him.
Well, he's not Andrew Luck.
Agreed.
And he's not Brady.
Agreed.
Today, he's better than Peyton Manning this morning.
Okay, well,
Peyton Manning could do about 45 yards right now.
True.
Who's better than him? Who?
Roethlisberger? Ben Roethlisberger is miles better than Joe Flacco.
Oh, no way. Flacco never throws an interception. Ever.
He never, ever throws an interception.
He's a moneymaker.
Wait. Roethlisberger stinks in the playoffs?
Roethlisberger can't get along with his offensive coordinator. This guy's coachable.
Wait a second. Flacco got offensive coordinators fired for how he played.
Those guys were jerks. They had it coming.
Wait a second. Flacco's throwing 8 picks in the postseason, by the way. In case you wanted to, they archive that stuff, You
don't like Flacco either. What is it with you?
No, I'm saying I like him, but to say that he's I think you had him as the 5th best quarterback in the NFL right now?
I think
that's absurd.
What is it with you people?
What do you mean, you people?
I can't help you.
Wait a second. So he's money in the postseason? That's your argument? What's so great about Flacco? Tell me what is so great about him. He's an outstanding deep ball thrower. No doubt about that.
Okay, so that's one.
Okay?
Arm strength through the roof.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
Well,
but Matthew Stafford's got massive arm strength. So does Jay Cutler.
Yeah. Proving it's not just arm strength.
Okay.
Physical confidence, better feet than you think,
Russell Wilson's got good feet, doesn't he?
But he's 5'4". I mean,
so what? Does he get a lot of balls batted down? What's wrong? Russell Wilson's not better than Flacco in your estimation. Wait a second. Why is Russell Wilson not better?
You think Wayne Gretzky was no good at hockey? I mean, so who am I talking to here?
Listen, I think he's a very good quarterback, and I think that he can get as hot as anyone. But to say that he is the fifth best quarterback, that to me is mind-boggling that you think that way.
I don't see it any other way.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
So Phillip Rivers,
Joe Flacco's better. Yeah.
Not close? You think?
No, I mean, they're both really good, but Flacco's better.
Why do you think he's better?
I don't know, because he doesn't throw sidearm.
So Rivers' mechanics, even though Rivers' numbers throughout his career have been far superior.
Maybe win a playoff game occasionally. I don't know, kind of matters.
But does that have anything to do with the team and style of play? Not anything like that.
I think Joe Flacco is in a big...
Roethlisberger. Let's get back to Big Ben.
Yeah. Hasn't done squat in about 7 years.
Hasn't done squat in about 7 years. He had 2 games this year. We threw 12 touchdowns in 2 games.
Against, regular season. My guy shows up
against the playoff team in the Colts.
Listen, I can't help you with certain things.
What do you mean help me? I don't understand what you have to help me with Flacco. Listen, I think Flacco is a good player. To say that he is the fifth, he's a top 5 quarterback.
Well, I said he's in that 5th, 6th, 7th kind of hero.
So you're coming off of it. All right,
a little bit.
Okay. I mean, all right. So listen, that's a different conversation. You start to put him in
he's in that
line.
Smush.
Listen, I don't think it's absurd to say he's a top 10 quarterback.
I
don't think listen, I think he's a top 10 quarterback.
Right.
But to say he's the 5th best quarterback is...
See, I have moved off Peyton and Drew Brees this year because...
And Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, I made a mistake on that
you've
one.
moved off...
I've moved off Kaepernick, who I liked a lot. I've moved off Drew and Peyton. Physically, they're not the same players today. They're just not... Now, first ballot Hall of Famers, I've been all in on both. They're not the same players today. Flacco today, if you said, all right, a big playoff game on the road, by the way, it's January, it's 27 degrees and windy. I'm taking Joe Flacco for Peyton Manning 1,000 out of 1,000 times.
That's okay. So you're going to do that. But again, Russell Wilson.
I love him.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Not as in love.
I mean, to think that those guys in that environment that you just described wouldn't do... Listen, the things that he's capable of doing.
We're just going to agree. Some people don't understand the greatness of the Brussels sprout, and if you don't, I can't help you with it. Like some people, I can't broccoli Rob. Either you get it or you don't, and if you don't, I'm sad.
That's incredible. While we're on the topic of how you feel about certain quarterbacks, all right? So Andy Dalton. So
he's a hack.
You think he's a hack? You think he's terrible?
No, I think he's fifth. He's like middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack. Okay. Now you realize that if A.J. Green doesn't quit on a route, and if A.J. Green doesn't fumble, and if their special team, Cincinnati's that is, doesn't allow a punt return for a touchdown, they're hosting a playoff game. You realize that. You realize that a special teams touchdown and 2 turnovers that were the fault of their best offensive player, who, by the way, did not play yesterday in a road game.
Yeah, you do realize if the Colts didn't drop 7 balls yesterday, they would have won by 40.
Well, you realize that. Now, so I understand you're not in love with him. It fits the popular narrative of he stinks, even though it's not totally accurate.
Yeah, that's all I care about.
And he is better than half of the starters in the league. I'm still trying to figure out how in the world you get from red rifle to beige water pistol. Okay? Rifle, water pistol. All right, I get it. I'm connecting the dots. Red to beige. I got no idea how you make that jump.
Red is a fiery...
So how do you, like, pink water pistol? Or, like, it doesn't have to be a form of red? Like, you realize, like, beige is like tan.
Yeah, because beige is boring. Andy Dalton's a boring water pistol.
But you realize the red has to do with his hair, right? Red rifle, beige water pistol.
If you don't get Flacco, just end the conversation. Maybe it's the end of our friendship.
Putting style in black T-shirts. It's Colin Cowherd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
Have you guys seen that story on TMZ where Dean Blandino, who is this is just so funny. It's not funny for the NFL. Executives from several NFL clubs expressed extreme disappointment and anger at a TMZ video that appears to show the league's head of officiating, Dean Blandino, out for a night of partying in L.A. with the Cowboys, son of the owner, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones. So that's obviously not going to be great for the league right there. because everybody already thinks the league with the Cowboys is, like somewhat fixed. It's just amazing. So Simmons, come on. Are you Jason Whitlock's all over this thing this morning. What do you make of that Cowboy call?
Jason Whitlock's all over it?
Well, he's just going crazy.
Is he fighting with it?
No, he's just going crazy. Dean Blandino, head of officiating, was out with Steve.
Well, it was horrible. I mean, I've been watching football since I was 4 years old. I've never seen them call a pass interference, have the referee announce the pass interference, and then pick up the flag. I've never seen it. And according to all the people I've read today, nobody else has seen it either. It was just weird. It was super fishy, but I also think, immediately, I even tweeted this right when it happened, it became the picked up flag game. And sometimes when you're watching a sporting event, especially when you have two teams that have the kind of tortured history that those two teams had, Dallas more recently and then Detroit for decades and decades, you kind of felt the whole game like something weighty was going to happen. You didn't know who it was going to happen to, but you were just kind of waiting for some sort of monkey wrench to drop for one of the teams. And when that happened, I think everyone had the same thought, like, oh, my God, here we go. But it overshadows the fact that, first of all, they didn't go for it on 4th and 1. You talked about that before, but, they're on Dallas' side of the field. They had been running the ball the whole game. It's not like Dallas is the 85 Bears. I thought Detroit choked on that. I thought they got rattled by the call. And then the 10-yard punt, that guy got off the hook. Wow. Did anyone get off the hook more than the 10-yard punter?
It's incredible.
And then they had a 4th and 6. Dallas did that. Detroit gave up like a 20-yard pass to Witten.
Yeah.
And then Stafford fumbled twice on the last drive. First time it got picked up. Second time he fumbled again. So, I thought Detroit choked after the call. But I also thought that was one of the worst calls I can remember in an NFL game, hands down.
I think New England is petrified of the Ravens. I'm not kidding you. I watched that game. Flacco's doing it again, Bill. They're doing it again. He's upright.
First of all, I'm offended that you think that. I was on the show with you 2-3 weeks ago. You were telling me how the Pats were the team.
I know.
Now the Ravens beat the Steelers without Le'Veon Bell. They have a guy starting at running back who'd been waived by 2 other teams in the past 2 months, and now you're on the Ravens bandwagon.
I'm freaking out. Yeah, I'm freaking out because I want to go to Phoenix and get New England and Seattle or something, or Green Bay. I'm freaking out. If I get stuck with Baltimore, I'm going to be bitter. But they've got that look. They've got that look, don't they?
Oh, they do? They have that look? What's that look?
That look is...
A team that beat Pittsburgh on the road without Le'Veon Bell? Is that the look
you have no fear. You have no fear.
No, I thought that was the best game Baltimore has played since week 2. I was not a believer in Baltimore. I thought they were a fraud playoff team. And every year, I wrote about this in my column on Friday, I call it the wonk team. Every year there's a wonky team that ends up in the playoffs and you don't take them seriously, and then all of a sudden they have momentum. And I think heading into this season, the wonk team going into the playoffs was 22-3. Since 2007. The Giants in 2007 were the original wonk team, right? Like nobody expected them to do anything.
Right.
I thought the winner of the Cardinals-Panthers game was going to be the wonk team. It's clearly the Ravens, but let me clear something up for America because I'm tired of hearing about how the Ravens have the Patriots number. All right, so they win in 2009. They beat the Patriots in the playoffs. That Patriots team was the worst Patriots team of the last 12 years in the Belichick era. They went 10-6. They lost Welker in Week 17. Every Patriots fan was super-duper concerned about that game and did not feel good about it. So there's one. The Patriots beat them in 2011 with Gronkowski playing on one leg. And then in 2012, when the Ravens beat them in New England, no Gronkowski whatsoever. The best receiver on the Patriots is now in jail, Aaron Hernandez. So they have never beaten a healthy Patriots team with Gronkowski, and I just think that has to be mentioned.
All right, I'm going to play some audio from a couple of weeks ago that was deeply disturbing to me. Go ahead.
I love Colin.
Colin Cowherd.
Colin Cowherd, yeah.
Interesting.
What's so interesting that somebody likes me? I thought that I could not believe your reaction. I could kind of sense animosity toward me because the genius Larry David finds me mesmerizing.
No, you know what? I got a couple emails about that. People love to start feuds between ESPN people that don't exist, especially you and I, because we like each other. I've come on the show a million times. I was surprised that he was listening to sports radio during the day. That was my reaction. I was like, I just assumed he was in some, some ritzy Santa Monica office coming up with comedy and writing scripts, and then he's like, yeah, I listened to Colin Cowherd during the day. I was just taken aback. Because you're on, in the West Coast, you're on between 7 and 10.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. I have immense respect for your opinions.
I thought so, maybe not. By the way, you know where all those funny jokes come from on late night? They come from this show, partner. They all start here.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Hey, can I just tell you, I went 1-3 with my picks in round 1. I did not like those games. Round 2, historically, usually you have the one close game, the one close spread. This time around, all the spreads are high.
Give me your best pick this weekend.
I don't really have one yet, but it's really hard for me to think that Seattle's not going to just destroy Carolina.
That's exactly what I think. But you know what? It's too obvious. What's the Denver Indy line? 7.
Well, Indy, see, we do this in the playoffs every year. A team looks a little too good in round 1 for whatever reason, and we overrate them coming. I don't think the Colts are very good. I think they really, really won the lottery that A.J. Green didn't play in that game because not only that, but Gresham. You guys running around the Bengals that I'd never even heard of. The white guy who was, I guess, like a fullback / tight end. Who was that guy? They threw to him like 7 times.
Yeah, no,
so they won the lottery at that. But, I mean, watching that Panthers-Cards game, Cam Newton, how many receivers did he miss? Like 12?
You know what? Here's the thing about Cam. He's an elevated version of Kaepernick. If you can't sit in the pocket and throw darts, I know Cam's got great legs, but let's be honest. Do you ever trust him late in the game, throw the ball down the field from the pocket? He's just the best running quarterback. He's an elevated version of Kaepernick. I just don't trust him to make big throws.
Well, and also, the fact that they almost didn't cover that game would have been one of the biggest travesties in the history of gambling. The Cardinals hadn't cracked 100 yards and still had a chance to cover at the end, but he missed 12 guys. I thought his body language in the second half was terrible. His body language was so bad that I kept expecting him to put a Cleveland Cavaliers uniform on.
By the way,
play drums for me.
I text Maverick Carter.
Thank you.
Do you have Maverick Carter's cell phone?
I don't. I'm not a heavy hitter like you are.
Yeah, because I've been texting him. That thing's a mess. We don't have. Give me 20 seconds on what's going on with the Cavs.
LeBron doesn't look like LeBron.
True.
And might be 30 years old with a lot of miles on him and who knows what else. Kevin Love looks miserable.
Miserable.
I can't imagine really anyone less fun to play basketball with than Kyrie Irving. He's like that guy in the pickup game that just shoots every time, and eventually you're just looking over the sidelines trying to get on someone else's team because you think you're going to lose.
Yes, I see that. But Kevin Love.
No rim protection. I mean, no rim protection. This team's going to lose in round 1 if they don't fix that. You have to be able to protect the rim in some way. They can't protect it at all. And on top of it, the coach just looks overmatched. I mean, this feels like Mark Trestman 2.0.
All right, got to get out of here, buddy. Bill Simmons, let's hear it for Bill. All right, buddy. Good talking to you.
Interesting.
Yeah, let's talk. We love Bill.
Want more of the herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
By the way, this is the least surprising news. It's been rumored for some time. The St. Louis Rams could be headed back to L.A. as early as 2016, a year after purchasing 60 acres of land in Inglewood, adjacent to the Forum in Hollywood Park. Rams owner Stan Kroenke has teamed up with the owners of the Hollywood Park site to build an NFL stadium, the L.A. Times reported Monday. So we've talked about this on the show. It's the worst-kept secret in the NFL. Stan Kroenke purchased 60 acres of land. Now he's going to work with the Hollywood Park people. They're going to build an NFL stadium. It's a done deal. They're going to build it. Stockbridge Capital Group owns about 240 acres. They've already got plans for a mixed-use community on that land. So, and the Rams are expected to convert their lease to a year-to-year agreement later this month. It looks like the Rams will eventually move to Los Angeles. And this is not a shocker. So L.A. is going to build by the Forum, where that's when I started going to Laker games. It was at the Forum. There's a lot of land out there, and they're going to convert it. There's not a lot of land in Los Angeles you can get that's that good and that many acres. So they're going to build an NFL stadium right there. Trent Dilfer worked with Stuart Scott, by the way, on Monday Night Football Countdown. I know this was probably a tough weekend for you. Stu was a remarkably courageous guy. And was it a tough weekend, Trent?
Yeah, it really was, Colin. It's been a tough stretch, obviously, for those close to him, knowing his fight. I just thought it was awesome, the influence that Stuart's life had on so many. Watched all the stuff that we did on our network to honor him about his legacy, but how about the other networks honoring Stuart Scott and telling his story? And his influence was vast, and a man that had incredible capacity to love those around him.
Yeah. Trent, I've been defending Joe Flacco this morning, and I know Flacco is not perfect, but there's something to be said about physical confidence, the ability to play late in the season in cold weather. I don't know what it is about Flacco. He's obviously got a great arm, but you always talk about dude qualities. Flacco seems to have those in the room. A lot of people don't like him. I really, really like him. What do you see with him? What do you like or not like?
Surprised you've had to defend him. I mean, the guy's won a Super Bowl, won one of the great stretches in the postseason we've ever seen, and seems to get his team back into the tournament every year and then win games. He plays his best football when it matters the most.
Yep.
Yes, he has great presence to him. I think, confidence is something that's very hard to describe. It's very hard for the average person to see. Supreme confidence like Joe has, I think those filters through the building, makes everybody a little more at ease, makes people believe in themselves a little bit more. I think that's what he has going on now. He's not as consistent as other guys in the regular season. He'll force the ball a little bit more maybe than the next guy. I think Eli Manning and Joe Flacco are very similar players. They're guys that are inconsistent in the regular season. That's why people scratch their head and don't want to necessarily put them with Brady and Manning and Rodgers and those guys. But they're guys because they believe in themselves so much, because nothing rattles them, because they have that supreme confidence that comforts others, that when you get into big games, big moments, obviously playoff situations, they're going to play their best football.
Yeah. Listen, there was a bad call in the Dallas game. I didn't think it was the worst.
Well, I don't think it's a bad call. I totally disagree.
Okay.
It's a horrible throw. The flag never should have been thrown. I mean, go back. Everybody's sitting there watching your show and the replays of it. And why bail quarterbacks out for terrible throws? The ball hits the linebacker in the middle of the back of the numbers. So how's that ball ever going to get caught? There's very little contact. The tight end actually engages the contact first.
Yes.
The majority of the contact from the linebacker is trying to get his arm off of him. Their bodies don't necessarily collide. There is no such thing as face guarding in the NFL. So for the idiots out there going, it's face guarding. No, it's not. The contact is the key. And it's a terrible throw. We can't bail quarterbacks out on terrible throws. That ball is never going to be completed with the linebacker there. So I don't think a flag ever should have been thrown, and I give my hats off to the refs for saying, you know what? There was no contact there. Flag should have been thrown. The ball's not going to be completed by any stretch of the imagination. So let's get the call right. And the right call would have been a no call. Yeah. And I don't care that Joe Fan wants an explanation over the mic. They don't need an explanation. Let's just get the call right. And I think they got the call right.
Yeah, the one thing that nobody has said, you're the first to say this, and I've said it today, Pettigrew twice pushed off on the linebacker.
And that's not even the biggest issue. That's issue number two. Issue number one, it's a terrible throw. It's not going to get caught unless the linebacker becomes the invisible man all of a sudden, or hollow man, and it goes through him. And Matthew Stafford would be the first to tell you that. That's the thing. The quarterback's like, it wasn't PI, because that ball never could have been caught. I choked it. I let it go low.
When you look at Dallas-Green Bay as a matchup, Dallas had it's so funny, Trent. It feels like to me when Dallas goes on the road as a dog, they play with so much more urgency. Like they let the game come to them, but on the road, they go to the game. I think they have a shot against Green Bay. Do you?
Yeah, I thought they're the team. I thought they're the only team that could go to Green Bay and win or could go to Seattle and win in the NFC. I mean, this is a team that's still, obviously, massively obvious, they're 8-0 on the road this year. But it's because how they're built. Just offensively, they can take a game over. I agree with you that their mentality, they're a little more aggressive when they go on the road. They know they got to protect their defense a little bit, which, by the way, has gotten a lot better.
Yes.
So we're all still judging Dallas' defense from week 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They played pretty darn good football late in the year, and a lot of credit goes to Rod Marinelli and that staff for getting them enhancing their schemes a little bit, getting them to play a little bit more physical. They can get out the passer. They play a little bit tighter coverage in the secondary. But, yeah, this is a team that I thought they're the most dangerous team in the NFC. going into the playoffs. They're just built in that way that can make a run. And they're incredibly resilient. They got a soul to them. I love the post-game sound from Garrett, just being so proud to be part of the team, be part of that group, because I think this team does have a special chemistry.
Yeah, you know, it would be really something if Romo did it. I think I find myself rooting for Romo. You know, when you look at this weekend and, okay, now we come out of this and you're going to get Baltimore at New England, Carolina, Seattle, Dallas, Green Bay, and Indianapolis at Denver. I don't want to do this because they're a well-run organization, but ever since Andrew Luck got there, I'm kind of waiting for the Colts to build this team around him. Does it not kind of feel like Andrew, once again for the third straight year, has to carry Indianapolis? Are they not? I mean, I just keep watching this offensive line and I keep watching this defensive line. It still feels like Andrew Luck is carrying this team every game.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think I don't think they're a championship team because they haven't yet grasped upstairs in their front office. Wow, we have a player that's going to go down in 10, 15 years as one of the greatest ever. And we haven't supported him enough offensively. They can't move anybody on the offensive line. Now, they pass protect better. They did do a good job keeping Andrew a little bit cleaner in the passing game, but he also got the ball out of his hand really quick in the playoff game. But you got to be able to move people up front. You got to have some knockback in you, and they have not drafted anybody with any knockback on the offensive front. And I think on the defensive front, they don't have a lot. So they don't win in the trenches on a consistent basis, and it's really hard, no matter how great the quarterback is, to go into this time of year and not be able to win in the trenches. You're big guys. You know, those guys that used to wear a T-shirt in the pool when they were in junior high.
Yeah.
You got to get a bunch of those guys that can get dirty and ugly and move people and have some knockback in your game, because no matter how great your quarterback is, he can't just put the team on his back and carry you.
Yeah, it feels like he has to. Outside of Vontae Davis, I can't think of another player not connected to Luck that other teams would vie for. Super Bowl champ Trent Dilfer, Happy New Year, bud.
Happy New Year, partner. Talk to you later.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast.